Okay, let's begin today. Today we're going to be covering the Hebrew vowels. We're going to be reviewing them and covering them in a little bit more depth. Hebrew vowels are referred to as niqqud. So they are not like the letters that we have in English. Niqqud is a series of dots and lines. So I'm going to illustrate that here in just a moment. I'm going to be using as an example the letter bet, and I'm going to supply the vowels or the niqqud, so you will see what they look like and what they sound like. And they are basically the a, e, o, u sounds here. So let's begin with the first one. The first one is going to be a kamatz. I'm going to put that under the bet. And it looks like that. Like a little T, if you will, under the bet. And so the kamatz gives you the sound of ah. So with the bet, which makes a b sound, and the vowel kamatz, an ah sound, you have ba. Okay, so again, this is the kamatz. Let's see. Kamatz. Something like that. Kamatz. Ah. Ba. Now the next vowel is called a patak. A patak. And it is just a line under the consonant, bet, as we're using here as an example. And it's also ah. It's a little shorter, but when it's vocalized, it's hard to distinguish when you're listening to someone talking whether they're using a kamatz or a patak. But that is also that kamatz and the patak make the sound of ah. Now, the bet without the dagash or dagash here makes a va sound. It's the letter bet, but it's softened and it makes a va sound. So with the patak, it would be va. This would say va. Here we have the kamatz, and it says ba. So this is the patak. All right. Both make the sound of ba. Bet with the dagash, ba without the dagash, it's a va sound. So this is also patak, va. So those are the two ah sounds in Hebrew. Now we're going to take that off, and we're going to go to our next vowel, which is the a sound. And the first one we're going to look at is called the tsire. Tsire. And that's two dots. Okay? Called a tsire. And that makes an A sound. So with the bet that says ba, and the vowel tsire that says a, this would sound bay. Bay. Okay? Now here is the bet without the dagash. So it's a v sound. And I'm going to put a tsire under that. And that will give you a ve sound. So that is the a sound in Hebrew. Now we have another vowel that is in this class, and it's called a sigol. And the sigol looks like this. 3 dots under the letter. Hope you can see that. And the letter here is bet, again, with the sigol. I'm going to write that. Hope you can see that. Okay. G-H-O, a sigol. And it makes an eh sound. Eh. So, with the bet, with the dagesh, is a hard b sound, b, with the sigol, a sound, so it's a be, okay? E, b, e, e. Okay, and now we're coming over to the bet without the dagesh, has a v sound, and here has a ve, with the sigol. Okay, so those are the 2 vowels that I'm going to give you today. So we have the a, e, and we're going to move now to the I sound in Hebrew. And it is simply like this. It's 1 dot under the letter. Again, I hope you could see that well. It's called a hierarch. That's an H. Hierarch. And it makes an E sound. E. So to kind of illustrate that, I'm going to write 2 E's there. It makes an E sound, that little dot. So with the bet and with the dagesh, the hard ba, plus the hierarch underneath that dot, you have a B sound, B. And now the bet without the dagesh has a v sound, and with the hierarch underneath the vowel, you have a V sound. Okay, so that is the E sound of one more addition. Again, it has a really essentially the same sound, but it's called the hierarch yud. And the yud is placed right there, at the top of the letter. So you have the hierarch yud, and it also makes an E sound. Again, with the bet and dagesh, you have B. Same thing here with the bet without the dagesh, a V sound, and you have V. Okay, so now we're going to go to our next sound, which is the O sound. And I'm going to erase all of that out. So we're looking for the O sound in Hebrew, and it's called a holam. And it can go in 2 different places. The holam is a dot right there at the top and to the left of the letter. And that is called the holam. And that makes an O sound. Okay, hope you can see that. That makes an O sound. So what you have here, when you see the bet with the dagesh, ba, and the holam, O, you have bo. Again, the bet without the dagesh, a va sound, and you have vo. And this is the vowel holam. Now there's another way to present this vowel in Hebrew, and it's called the holam vav. And so it would be the letter bait with the letter vav next to it, and the dot, the holum on top, and that's why it's called the holum vav. Draw one here, holum vav. And we don't pronounce the vav. So when you see the holum vav, you're just going to really pronounce the holum there, and it's pronounced again, o. O. Holum vav. I'll put that here. Holum vav. And that is pronounced o. So again, we have bet with the dagesh, hard bet, ba, plus the holum, bo. The bet without the dagesh, a va sound, and we have vo. All right, so that is the o sound in Hebrew. And let us just go to the next one, and that will end our review today. And we're going to go to, what's the next one? The oo. We need an oo sound. Oo. Again, it's the a, e, o, u. Those are the sound of the vowels there in Hebrew. So now we have the u, and the u is called, the vowel that makes the u sound is called a surek. A surek. And I'm going to write it right here. It is a vav with a dot in the middle like that. And it's called a shurek. Shurek. And it makes an oo sound. Okay? Again, bet with the dagesh, ba is the consonant sound, bet, ba. With the vowel, shurek, it makes an oo sound, and you have boo, boo. Do one over here for the vet. The bet without the dagesh, a va sound. This would make voo, voo. So that is our review today for those vowels, a, e, o, and u. And just write them. You could find them in your workbook. Study them, look at them, memorize them. So when you see them, you will be able to know how to make those vowel sounds. And as we study our vocabulary, as we look through the book of Jonah, we're going to be seeing how these consonants and vowels are used and what sound they make to form a word. And if there are any variations of these that I have not, these are the main ones. If there are any variations of these that I have not covered, we'll cover that as we come across them in the book of Jonah. Okay, so here we are again. And we're going to review quickly the Aleph bet, the alphabet in Hebrew. All right, beginning, remember, in Hebrew, we read from right to left. And so the first letter, Aleph, is up here in this corner. And I'm going to point that out with my pointer here. And you follow me and say the sound of the consonants of the Aleph bet as we go across. All right? Here we go. First letter, Aleph, Aleph. Bet, bet. Gimel, Gimel. Dalet, Dalet. Hey, Hey. Vav, Vav. You say it with me. As I say it, you say it, okay? This is a Zion, a Zion. And a that should be a het. That's not drawn correctly, so I'm going to correct it. This is a good example. That looks like a hay. That's drawn as a hay. Here's the hay. This should be a het, and it's closed. So I'm going to do that now. So those letters look similar, and you have to be careful. I made that mistake. So that's called a het. You got to do it right here in your throat. Het, het. So that's a het, and then a tet. So again, Aleph, bet. I think my bet could be a little stronger here. It looks a little weak. I just want you to be able to see it. So that's the bet. So Aleph, bet, gimel, gimel, dalet, hey, vav, zayin, chet, tet. All right, we're going to go to the next line now, and we have a yud. The yud. Kaf, lamed, mem, nun, vav, somek, ayin. All right, I'm going to go over that again. Yud makes a y sound. Kaf, k sound. Lamed, l sound. Mem, m sound. Nun, n, n. Vav, v. Somek, s. Ayin. Ayin is silent, just like the Aleph. Aleph and ayin are the two silent letters in Hebrew. They only take the sound of the vowel that you place under them, over them, or beside them. We just reviewed the vowels. So now we're going to our last line for review here. And we have a pay. Pay. And next is a tsadi. It's a TS sound. Tsadi. Ts, ts. The pay, of course, makes a p sound. The tsadi makes a ts sound. Kuf makes a k sound. Kuf. It's like our Q. Resh. Resh makes a r sound. R. And sheen. Sheen makes a sh sound. And then our final letter, taf, makes a ta sound. So the last line again is pei, tsori, kuf, resh, shin, taf. Now I'm going to go through all of the letters very quickly. Aleph, bet, gimel, dalet, hey, vav, zayin, chet, tet, yud, kaf, lamed, mem, nun, vav, somek, ayin, pei, tsodi, kof, resh, shin, tav. Last letter, tav. So that's our review. It was a quick review. But these letters you need to go over on your own. Go over, say them, pronounce the name of the letter so you can identify them. The Aleph is silent. The bet is a b sound. This is what you want to do in your own review at home and practice these, and that's how you'll learn your Aleph bet. I also sent to you the Aleph bet song in your email, so you should practice singing that song. It will really help you. We sing it in class when we're all together in class, and it works very, very well. You can find these. If you don't have that one I sent you, go online. You can find the Aleph bet song in a number of different places. It's free. Get that and practice it, and you'll do well. Okay? Stay with us now. We're going to move on to looking at the next verse in Jonah, in just a moment, so stay with us. Okay, we're back. And we are going to be looking at the third verse, or part of the third verse of the first chapter of the book of Jonah. Now we need to remember that we are studying Hebrew here. We're studying the book of Jonah in the Hebrew language. And this is called the sacred language. So we expect to get some more insights here as we look at this book in its original language. So I'm going to be reading from the third verse of Jonah, and if you have your workbook, you want to go to page 6, and at the bottom of page 6 is verse 3. At the very bottom of that page, the first words are Ra'ata lifanai, their evil is before me, and then the next verse begins, which is verse 3. And I'm going to begin reading from there. And let's remember that this book of Jonah, that the Lord, Yeshua, the Messiah, mentions Jonah as a sign to this evil generation, and that there is a message in this book that is very important for our time. So let's look at it. I'm going to be reading from Vayakam. So it's the third word in from the bottom, reading from right to left. Okay, here we go. Vayakam Yonah livroach Tarshisha malifne Adonai, vayered yafo, vayimsa onia ba'a Tarshish, vayitain sikara, vayered ba lavo imahem Tarshisha milifne Adonai. So we're going to be looking closely at the last part of that verse, which begins with Vayimsa. Okay? So I have it up here on the board. I'm going to go over each word and try to break it down for you using my pointer. And here is the first word, Vayimsa. And you see it begins here with a Vav. Vav Patak, Vayim, Mem, Tzadi, Aleph, Vayimsa, and he found. Okay, that's the word for and he found. And then Onia, a ship or a boat, and here it is, Aleph, Kamatz, which you would want to read as except there's a grammatical rule here to pronounce it as O at the beginning of a word here. So this is vocalized Onia. Vayimsa Onia, a boat. Ba'a, and now we come to a verb here, Ba'a. And it's the Hebrew verb ba, which means actually to come. It is translated as to go. It's an unusual word, and I've often seen it translated as go. Maybe the meaning there is to come, let us go. I don't know, but it is the Hebrew word ba. Perhaps you're familiar with Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And it's the word for come. In this context, it's translated as go. So you have Vayimsa Onia Ba'a, and he found a ship going, Tarshish. We've had this word before, Tarshish. So there it is, Taf, Resh, Shin, Yud, Shin, Tarshish. He found a ship going to Tarshish. And then we have Vayitain. Okay? So it begins with the Vav and the verb here, the Yud is a little hard to see. It's right there. Vayitain, and it's the word to give, from latat, which is the infinitive to give. Perhaps some of you know the word Nathaniel or Nathan, Nathaniel. Okay, so that means the gift of God or what God gave. Nathaniel. And then you hear the word Nathan in there. This is Vayitain, and he gave. Sikara, and he gave the fare. So, or he gave the price. Sikara is a word that means to hire, to rent, even to enslave, actually. And sometimes it's used that way. But Sikara, he paid. And he paid the fare, and he gave the fare, literally, and he paid the fare. And now we're down here. Vayered, and he went down. So yarad is the Hebrew word for going down. Yarad. Perhaps you know the word Yarden, the Jordan. Yarden, it's the river that goes down. It begins at the top of the land of Israel, coming out of the Sea of Galilee and going down through the land of Israel. Anyway, yarad is the verb for going down. It says, here it is, I'm sorry. Vayirad, and he went down, ba. Now this is a different ba, or this should be, let's see, we had ba'a up here. This is wrongly written again. Again, I made mistakes. Here, here's what happened. Here's the word ba'a, and it's the, also I need to, this should have a dagish here. It's ba'a, and we said it meant to come, or in this case to go, and it's bet Aleph, so that is the verb to come. This is also pronounced ba, but I wrote it wrong, and now I'm going to correct it, because this is not the word to come. This is the word in it. This is a hey. It's a bet hey. See it right here? So this is, even though it's pronounced the same as the word come, ba, it's a different consonant. It's bet hey. So ba here means, here's the bet, means in. And this hey, actually literally, if we translated it literally, we would say in her or into her. Speaking of the ship or the boat is feminine, onia. He gets into it. Vayered, he goes down into it. So, or literally into her, into the boat. Vayered ba, and then we have an infinitive here. Lavo, and here again is the word ba. If you could see it, it's a vet, and here's the vet, and here's the aleph. It's the infinitive of the verb ba, which means to come. We just had it. But this means to come. Here, lavo, the infinitive, lavo, to come. Imahem, here, ayin, mem, hey, final mem, here, takes a different form. If you're following in your workbook, imahem, with them, Tarshisha, there's no to Tarshish here, but that hey on the end indicates that it's toward Tarshish. So to come with them toward Tarshish, Melifne Adonai, before the presence of the Lord. So he's from, I'm sorry, not before, Melifne, from. That mem tells us that it's from the presence of the Lord, and that's important. Lifne means before, milifne, from before the presence of the Lord. So he's going away from the presence of the Lord. So I'll just read that again for you. Up here, Vayimsa Onia Ba'a Tarshish, Vayitain Sikara, Vayered Ba, he went down into it, Lavo, to come, Imahem, with them, Tarshisha, towards Tarshish, Milifne, from the presence, and then it ends with the sacred name. I ran out of room there, but it's Yod He Vav He in the end, from the presence of Adonai. Now, let's just stop for a moment to talk about the meaning here of this. We see at the very beginning of the book of Jonah that the Lord is speaking to Jonah. Vayehi begins, Vayehi devar Adonai, and the word of the Lord, Elionah, to Jonah, Ven Amittai, son of Amittai, Lemor, saying, the word of the Lord comes to Jonah, saying, arise, kum, lake, go to Nineveh, and cry against that city, for their sins have come up before me. It's time for their judgment. So go to that great city and cry against it, for their sins have come up before, for their evil, ra'ah, have come up before me. And that's the first verse there in Jonah. The calling, the strong calling to the prophet to go and warn the people of Nineveh that the Lord is about to judge them. And what does Jonah do? And it says, Vayakam Yonah, and he rose up, livroach, to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of Adonai. And that's where we are. And he goes down to Joppa, and he finds a ship, and here we are, Vayipsa Onia, and he finds a ship and goes down into it. So we see Jonah running away from the calling of God to bring the word of warning to the lost Gentiles, Nineveh. Now, we have already talked about them being very evil people and an enemy of Israel. Nevertheless, God has called the prophet to go and bring the word, really the word of redemption and salvation. And here's where this book becomes so important to us as believers. Because we have, like Jonah, we have the word of God. And we are called to share that word. And it's with all those who are lost. We can't pick and choose who we're going to share this word with. And Jonah thought he could flee from the presence, and we're going to find in the next verse what the Lord does. Jonah hears the word. He's a prophet. He is called, as we all are, to bring this word of salvation. He rises up not to obey the Lord, but to go from the presence of God. And we have something a little bit more. We could break this down just a little bit more before we end our lesson today. He finds the ship, and he going to Tarshish. And here's where he really solidifies concretely is going away from God. He pays the fare. It says, Vayite, he gives the cost of going away from God. It's not only a thought. It's not only, I'm walking away. But he actually pays the fare onto a ship going in the other direction from God. So it gets very concrete here, this action that he's taking. It's really a sin against his calling, against what the Lord has called him to do. And he goes down. We get very explicit details here. Vayered ba. He goes down into the ship. And that probably here, imahem, with them. He is now going down into a ship filled with Gentiles, and going with them on their mission to Tarshish, to bring cargo to Tarshish, where he is called to go in the opposite direction, to bring the cargo or the word of God to the Gentiles. Now he's going with them away from God. And he really makes his stand here with the lost. He's making his stand here with the lost, not to the lost. And Tarshisha towards Tarshish. Tarshish, we have probably mentioned, I think we've mentioned in lessons before this, that Tarshish was considered at that time for them the ends of the known world. Tarshish was far away. Tarshish is believed by some scholars to be present-day Spain, just before you get to the great Atlantic Ocean, and there is just, who knows what's beyond that. We don't know of people who have traveled at that time beyond that point. So Tarshish was kind of the end, as far away from God as he can get. This is such a terrible story of someone who disobeys God. But before we finish by blaming the prophet here, we have to look at our own selves here and ask ourselves, are we obeying what God has called us to do? Are we sharing the good news of the gospel with those right around us? Or if the Lord is calling us to a far and difficult place or situation, are we saying no to God? Are we spending our time going away from God with others, doing something else, rather than proclaiming the word of salvation? People are lost. And this book constantly reminds us, and will remind us very shortly in this first chapter, how lost people are without God, and that they need to hear the words of the Savior, of the Messiah, Yeshua, Son of God. So, we end here today with Jonah, Milifne, going to Tarshish from the presence, Milifne Adonai, from the presence of the Lord. You know, whether we're going to the mission field or right in our home, I'm right here in my home filming right now, we should never leave the presence of Adonai, of the Lord. This is where we find peace. This is where we find shalom, wholeness. This is where we find the meaning of our lives, in his presence. So don't walk away from the presence of the Lord ever. Go and find that presence wherever you are, for the Lord is with us wherever we go, if we are following him. So that's our message for today. And if you're out there and you don't know the salvation of the Lord, then take this as an invitation today. Believe me, the Lord wants you to come and receive his salvation, to receive a new life in him. This is what Jonah was supposed to be bringing to those who are lost in Nineveh. And you can find that new life. And so I'm making that appeal. If you happen to be watching and you're not a believer yet, take this as God's invitation to call you. I'm here. I've run away from the Lord like Jonah from time to time, but I'm here now. I'm obeying him now and calling you. Before he brings his judgment, he's calling you and inviting you to eternal life. Take that invitation today. God bless you, and have a good day. Bye-bye.